Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV. We look at a lot of streaming devices here on the channel, like the Rokus and the Apple TVs and the Fire TVs. And one thing I haven't really dived into in detail is how well the Xbox handles Netflix, Disney Plus, and all the other streaming apps out there, because those apps are available on the Xbox platform. And as we saw with our video looking at Plex on the Xbox, it actually is a pretty good media streamer, at least from the standpoint of its capabilities. And I thought what I would do in this video is look at the general streaming use cases for the Xbox and test out Netflix and Disney Plus and a few others and see how the Xbox performs using those apps. And what I'm looking for is whether or not we can get our HDR modes activated, whether or not we can get Dolby Atmos audio coming in from those services, and whether or not the Xbox running those streaming apps can switch itself into 24p mode so that the movies play back at the proper 24 frames per second. And there's really only one box that does all of that stuff perfectly at the moment, and believe it or not, it's the Apple TV. So we're going to take a look and see how well the Xbox fares with my usual set of criteria here. Now, I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that I paid for the Xbox with my own funds. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. No one is paying for this review, nor has anyone reviewed or approved what you're about to see before it was uploaded. So let's get into it now and see how the Xbox handles streaming media. Now, before we dive into my test results, I did want to show you how I have this Xbox configured. And by the way, I'm using a remote control that, in full disclosure, came in free of charge from 8BitDo a little while back. It's a pretty nice media controller that is designed specifically for the Xbox platform. Now, if we go over here to TV and display options, what I want you to look for in the advanced section is to make sure that the allow 24 hertz option here is checked on. This was very important when we were playing with Plex, but as you'll see in a minute, it's a little more problematic on some of the general streaming apps. Now, you're going to notice here that right now the HDR modes are dimmed out in the settings screen here, and that's because this monitor does not support HDR. But when we tested this upstairs, I was on my LG OLED TV, and I had checked on all of these HDR options so that we could make sure the apps would put the TV into the proper mode. I also want to direct your attention to the audio settings, because in order to get Dolby Atmos to work on your Xbox, you actually have to download an app first to do it. And that app is called Dolby Access, which will be available in the App Store. And when you first install it, what it's going to ask you to do is to sign up for some headphone subscription thing. You can skip that by hitting the Y button here. And then after that, it will configure your home theater receiver for Dolby Atmos for free. So you don't have to pay for Atmos, but you do have to download the app in order for it to get enabled in the streaming apps that support it. Now, the first app we tried upstairs was Netflix, and after we got the Atmos app installed on the Xbox, we were able to see the Atmos tag light up on the Netflix content that supported it. I loaded up Stranger Things, and it was able to display the content properly. We were seeing Dolby Vision work. We were also getting Dolby Atmos audio out of Stranger Things, but the Xbox was not switching the television into 24p mode from inside of the Netflix app. So all of the content on Netflix that is at 24p is going to be locked in at 60, and you might see some frame jitters as you're watching things, and that was something I definitely noticed. Another issue with Netflix on the Xbox is that if you watch some standard dynamic range content, like an older movie, it does not switch the television out of Dolby Vision mode, so it locks everything in at 60 hertz with Dolby Vision enabled. And the movie I tested out was Men in Black, and it just left it at 60 hertz 4K with Dolby Vision enabled, where it should have switched the TV out of that mode into a standard dynamic range mode. Now, Disney Plus worked a little better. Atmos audio worked. It was switching into the proper HDR modes and switching out of them when not needed. But just like Netflix, 24p didn't work. Prime Video, similar situation there in that it was switching into the proper HDR modes, but 60p was the locked-in frame rate for everything. One additional note on Prime Video is that Prime Video mostly supports HDR10, although the new Lord of the Rings series, which supposedly works in Dolby Vision, did not enable itself on the Xbox when I tested it, and it's possible that an update down the road might enable that support. But if you were looking to watch the Lord of the Rings show in Dolby Vision, it did not seem to work for me on the Xbox at the moment. Now, the biggest oddity involved the Apple TV Plus app. Content there said it supported Dolby Atmos audio when I was browsing it on the Xbox, but when I played the content, I was just getting standard Dolby Digital 5.1. Well, as it turns out, the setting we had enabled in the audio area here for Plex was interfering with Apple TV Plus. So when I disabled Allow Pass-Through, that suddenly got the Atmos audio working properly with the Apple TV Plus app. So if you're encountering that issue, it's likely because you have pass-through audio enabled. Turning that off will get Atmos working with Apple TV Plus. Now, just like all the other apps that I tested, Apple TV Plus did not switch the Xbox into 24p mode. It too was locked at 60 frames per second. And we also checked out YouTube running here on the Xbox with one of my 1080p 60 videos, and this seems to be playing back just fine, and it looks fine. I also earlier tested some HDR videos on YouTube, and those played back correctly as well, so no real issues there. Now, I also tested some live television watching using my HD Homerun network television tuner. In full disclosure, the makers of the HD Homerun Silicon Dust are an occasional sponsor here on the channel, but they're not sponsoring this video. So let's load it up here real quick, and I have one of their cable TV tuners that attaches to my cable subscription here. And it comes up and it works pretty nicely. And what's cool is that if you have one of these remotes with numbers on it, I can go ahead and just type in the channel that I want to watch, like the good old days, hit the center button here, and then tune to that channel. And of course, I get access to my DVR and everything else on here too. So this was a good experience on here. Everything seemed to play back just fine. And if you are using the cable tuner like I am, the Xbox supports DRM protected channels that some cable systems put a lock on. So in my area, just HBO is locked out, but I can get HBO on here. And again, if you have a cable system that locks everything, all those channels will play back properly on the Xbox. Now, whenever we look at a streaming media box, I'm also curious to see how well they do with game streaming. Now, of course, the Xbox has its own cloud service as part of Game Pass Ultimate, where you can stream games from the cloud without having to download them. But on the Xbox, you can also run the Edge browser, and streaming services that support the Edge browser will actually run on your Xbox. So right now we're running GeForce Now and streaming No Man's Sky from my Steam account here. It's not ideal, but it does seem to work. And as you can see here, I'm able to use keyboard and mouse controls with it too. So kind of neat that you can do this kind of thing on here, and it seems to function pretty well, all things considered. The graphical fidelity isn't great on this like it would be on an NVIDIA Shield that can stream at a higher bit rate, but it does work. And if there are other services that also allow for a browser-based streaming solution, those would likely work here too. So overall, the Xbox remains a great gaming platform, but I was a bit disappointed with its streaming performance, and that is largely to do with the fact that none of the apps that I tested support 24p switching, and the result of that, of course, is content not looking the way it should. And I think that's something that app developers and perhaps Microsoft need to get together on to rectify, because this could be the ultimate TV box if only we had a little better support on getting video modes switching properly. Now, the Xbox is not alone in having this problem. We're seeing this across the industry, and I bring this up all the time when I'm reviewing boxes for their streaming capabilities. So hopefully we'll start to see some movement there, because there was a big movement in the television industry to get rid of that frame interpolation that made everything look like a soap opera, and to get TVs working at 24p properly. So now the TVs are there, let's get the streaming boxes there now and get everything caught up. What I'm doing right now for my streaming media is that I watch most of my stuff on my TV's built-in apps, And my TV is starting to get a bit old and it doesn't have all the apps on it anymore. So for the supplemental device, I'm using the Apple TV, which does put my television into a proper 24p mode across all the apps that I use. And I think if the Xbox here can do the same, it'll be a really killer multi-purpose device. One thing I will say, though, about these new Xboxes, both the Series S here and the Series X, is that they are incredibly quiet. You don't hear the fan at all, even when you're running a game on them, especially across the room. So it was really nice to see how much quieter these have become versus some of the prior generation devices. Now, one last note on the Xbox is that many Xbox models can play back 4K Blu-rays in addition to doing streaming media. And that's just another check mark towards it being the ultimate media playback device. Now, this one here, the 1S, does not have an optical drive, but the Series X, which is the high-powered console in the lineup, has one, along with the Xbox One S from a couple of years ago, and the One X. All of those devices can play 4K Blu-ray movies in addition to everything else that an Xbox can do. So we'll keep an eye on the Xbox platform. I know it can do better, and I'm hoping it can do better. And at some point, I hope I can come back and do a video showing you how it's perfect at all the media streaming that I throw at it. And I can't wait to do that video as a follow-up. That's going to do it for now. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Brian Parker, Chris Allegretta, Hot Sauce and Video Games, Logic KGR, Tom Albrecht, and Amda Brown. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/s.